The year is 1340. For a century, the Golden Horde, the westernmost part of the Mongol Empire, has cast a colossal shadow over Eastern Europe. From the steppes of Central Asia, these invincible warriors had swept through Kievan Rus' in the 1230s, leaving a trail of ash and subjugation. Cities like Kiev, Vladimir, and Ryazan lay devastated. The nascent Rus' principalities, once vibrant and ambitious, were reduced to tributaries, their princes forced to journey to Sarai, the Golden Horde's capital on the Volga, to beg for Ayarlik, a Mongol patent that legitimized their rule. This brutal overlordship, known as the Tatar yoke, defined the political landscape for generations, stifling development and isolating the region from Western European influence. The Mongols never established direct provincial rule in Rus' lands west of the Dnieper, preferring a system of indirect control through chosen princely vassals and the collection of tribute. However, their raids continued. Yet, beyond this ravaged landscape, a new power was slowly but steadily rising, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Initially a loose confederation of Baltic tribes centered around Aukštaitija, Lithuania had by the early 14th century transformed into a formidable state under ambitious rulers like Mindaugas, Gediminas, and Algirdas. Unlike the Rus' principalities, Lithuania had remained largely untouched by the initial Mongol invasions. Its dense forests and marshlands proved a natural barrier, and its pagan beliefs offered no immediate targets for Mongol religious zeal. What set Lithuania apart was its remarkable ability to integrate conquered territories, particularly the Ruthenian, Rus' lands to its south and east. Instead of obliterating local culture and administration, Lithuanian Grand Dukes often preserved local laws, languages, and Orthodox Christianity, while demanding fealty and military service. This pragmatic approach allowed them to absorb vast swaths of what was formerly Kievan Rus, including Polotsk, Vitebsk, and Minsk. By the mid-14th century, the Golden Horde, though still immense, was no longer the monolithic, irresistible force it had once been. Internal strife, known as the Great Troubles, Velikaya Zamyatnia, began to tear the horde apart. Succession disputes, assassinations, and competing khans plunged the empire into a period of extreme instability. The assassinations of figures like Yanibeg Khan in 1357 and the subsequent rapid succession of khans, often lasting only a few months, indicated a deep-seated crisis. The western frontiers, particularly the lands bordering Lithuania, were becoming increasingly vulnerable. The traditional Mongol military might was being diluted by constant infighting and the fragmentation of their once unified command structure. This internal chaos was precisely the opportunity Algirdas, Grand Duke of Lithuania, had been waiting for. Algirdas, who ruled jointly with his brother Kęstutis, who focused on the Teutonic Knights in the west, was a master strategist and diplomat. His ambitions were clear: to expand Lithuanian influence eastward and southward, ultimately aiming to gain control over all of Rus' lands, and, crucially, Kiev itself. Kiev, though sacked by the Mongols in 1240, remained a symbolic prize, the ancient heart of Rus. For Algirdas, securing Kiev would not only enhance Lithuania's prestige, but also provide vast new resources and manpower. By the 1350s, Lithuanian control stretched to the Dnieper River. However, beyond lay territories still firmly under Mongol suzerainty, including Podolia and Severia, governed by local Tatar princelings and warlords who paid tribute to the Golden Horde. These lands were strategically vital, providing access to rich agricultural areas and trade routes. The precise date and even the primary surviving accounts of the Battle of Blue Waters. Sinovodska Bitva, in Ukrainian, Melinuju Vandenu Musis in Lithuanian, Bitva na Sinik Vodak in Old East Slavic chronicles, are somewhat debated among historians. The most widely accepted date is 1362. The main source for the battle is the Chronicle of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and Samogitia, a later compilation from the 15th and 16th centuries, which provides a somewhat embellished but fundamentally accurate narrative. It describes Algirdas leading a campaign into the wild fields against the Tatars. The expedition's objective was to secure Podolia and the lands along the southern Bug River, also known as the Bow River. These rich, fertile territories were crucial for their strategic value and agricultural output. Algirdas assembled a considerable force, estimated by various historians to be between 10,000 and 15,000 men. This army was a diverse mix: Lithuanian cavalry, infantry armed with spears and axes, as well as Ruthenian, Ruses, regiments from the newly incorporated principalities of Volhynia, Polotsk, Novogrudok, and Kiev. These Ruthenian contingents, many of whom had lived under or near the Mongol threat for generations, understood the gravity of the mission. They were motivated not only by loyalty to Algirdas, but also by a deep-seated desire to throw off the Mongol yoke. The campaign was meticulously planned, with Algirdas employing a strategy that leveraged the strengths of his mixed forces and exploited the known weaknesses of the fractured Mongol hierarchy. He aimed for a decisive engagement, far from the main strength of the Golden Horde, targeting the semi-independent Ulysses territories of the Pecheneg, Krim, and Yeresan hordes, who often operated with considerable autonomy but whose collective strength still represented the Golden Horde's western frontier. The Mongol forces facing Algirdas were not part of a unified Golden Horde army led by a single Khan from Sarai. Instead, they were the armies of three prominent Tatar chieftains, Orbay, who commanded their own Ulysses in the Dnieper-Dniester region and Podolia. These were Hadzabe or Kadzibey, Kutlubug or Kutluk-Buka, and Dima or Dimitar. Their forces consisted primarily of light cavalry, the traditional strength of Mongol armies, known for their speed, archery skills, and hit-and-run tactics. While individually formidable, these chieftains often lacked a unified command structure, and their cooperation was frequently opportunistic rather than strategic. Their combined strength was likely comparable to Algirdas's, perhaps numbering around 15,000 to 20,000, though reliable figures are scarce and often exaggerated in historical accounts. They controlled key river crossings and pastures, serving as the Golden Horde's western bulwark. The battle took place near the Sini-Vodin Blue Waters River, a tributary of the Southern Bug, in what is now Kirovorod Oblast, Ukraine. The exact location is believed to be near the modern village of Torovitsia. Algirdas, understanding the Mongol tactics, carefully chose his battlefield. Rather than confronting the Mongol cavalry in open steppes where their mobility would be supreme, he likely sought terrain that would negate their advantage or create bottlenecks. The terrain around the Sini-Vodin was characterized by river valleys, ravines, and patches of forest, which could disrupt cavalry charges and provide cover for infantry. Algirdas deployed his army in 1362, employing a tactical formation that blended maneuverability with resilience. He likely arranged his forces in a crescent-shaped formation, a common tactic against highly mobile adversaries. The flanks were probably reinforced with elements of heavy Lithuanian cavalry and Ruthenian retinues capable of both engaging in melee and outflanking. The center was composed of infantry, armed with spears and shields, designed to withstand the initial Mongol onslaught. Archer contingents, both Lithuanian and Ruthenian, would have played a crucial role, providing suppressing fire. The use of wagons, perhaps in a defensive perimeter, a Tabor formation, has also been suggested by some historians, though direct evidence for this specific battle is limited. Such a formation would provide a strong defensive position against cavalry charges and could also serve as a mobile fortress. The battle commenced with the characteristic Mongol storm of arrows. Their light cavalry would ride in circles, unleashing volley after volley, attempting to sow disarray and break the enemy formation before launching a full-scale charge. The Lithuanian and Ruthenian forces, however, held their ground. Algirdas's soldiers, likely experienced in facing both nomadic raiders and Western knights, were disciplined. They maintained their shield walls, absorbing the arrows, and returned fire with their own archers. The precise details of the engagement are sparse in primary sources, but it is clear that the Mongols, unable to break the Lithuanian lines with volleys of arrows, were forced into close-quarters combat. As the Mongol cavalry engaged, Algirdas executed a crucial maneuver, a double envelopment or pincer movement. While the center held firm, the Lithuanian heavy cavalry and the more mobile Ruthenian formations on the flanks extended and then wheeled inward, striking the Tatar forces from the sides. This classic maneuver, which echoes Hannibal's triumph at Cannae, was devastating. The Mongols, accustomed to sweeping flanks, found themselves caught between the unyielding Lithuanian center and the closing wings. Their superior mobility, usually their greatest asset, became a liability in a confined, collapsing battle space. Unable to disperse or launch effective countercharges, they were trapped. The combat that followed was brutal and decisive. The coordinated attack broke the Mongol formations. The initial shock of the flanking maneuver quickly turned into panic. The Tatar chieftains Hadzabe, Kutlubug, and Dima reportedly fell in battle, or fled in disarray. Their armies, deprived of leadership and cohesiveness, disintegrated. Many were cut down attempting to escape, others drowned in the river. The victory for Algirdas was complete and overwhelming. The Battle of Blue Waters was not merely a skirmish. It was a pitched battle where the strength of the Lithuanian forces and the strategic brilliance of Algirdas decisively overcame the long-feared Mongol military machine. The immediate consequences of the Battle of Blue Waters were profound. Foremost, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania gained undisputed control over Podolia, a vast and fertile region crucial for agriculture and trade. This extended Lithuanian influence eastward and southward, pushing the Mongol frontier significantly back. More importantly, Kiev, the ancient capital of Rus', which had already been under Lithuanian influence for some time, was now fully integrated into the Grand Duchy. Algirdas appointed his son, Volodymyr Olgierdovich, as the Prince of Kiev, solidifying Lithuanian authority over this symbolically and strategically important city. The loss of these territories represented a significant blow to the Golden Horde's prestige and economic power in the West. No longer could they levy tribute uncontested from these lands. The victory at Blue Waters sent shockwaves throughout Eastern Europe. It demonstrated unequivocally that the Mongols were not invincible, that they could be defeated in a direct military confrontation by a determined and well-led European army. This was a pivotal moment, as it challenged the long-held perception of Mongol supremacy that had dominated the region for over a century. For the various Rus' principalities, particularly those still under direct Mongol suzerainty like Muscovy, it offered a beacon of hope and a tangible example of successful resistance. It contributed to a growing sense of confidence among the Orthodox population that a new protector, rather than an oppressor, had emerged. Moreover, the battle significantly shifted the balance of power in Eastern Europe. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania emerged as the dominant regional power, a nascent empire stretching from the Baltic Sea almost to the Black Sea. Its territorial expansion was unprecedented for a European state of its time. This expansion was achieved through a blend of military conquest and shrewd diplomatic integration, drawing upon the Ruthenian legal and administrative traditions. The Grand Duchy thus became a multi-ethnic, multi-confessional state, encompassing Lithuanians, Ruthenians, ancestors of modern Ukrainians and Belarusians, and various other groups. This triumph cemented Lithuania's position as a major player in European geopolitics for centuries. However, the Battle of Blue Waters did not completely end Mongol power in Eastern Europe. The Golden Horde, despite its internal turmoil, remained a formidable entity for decades. It continued to launch raids into Lithuanian and Rus' lands and demanded tribute for those regions it still controlled. For instance, Tokhtamysh Khan would later launch devastating raids in the 1380s, even sacking Moscow in 1382. The Mongol threat, though diminished in its western reaches, was far from eradicated. Nevertheless, the psychological and strategic impact of Blue Waters was undeniable. It marked the beginning of a prolonged decline for the Golden Horde in its confrontation with the emerging powers to its west. The long-term legacy of the Battle of Blue Waters is complex and multifaceted. From a Lithuanian perspective, it represents a golden age of expansion and military prowess, solidifying the Grand Duchy's role as a major power. It highlighted Algirdas's brilliant generalship and the effectiveness of his combined Lithuanian and Ruthenian forces. For the Ruthenian lands, it meant a shift from Mongol overlordship to Lithuanian rule. While this replaced one foreign power with another, Lithuanian rule was generally perceived as less oppressive and more accommodating to local customs and the Orthodox faith compared to the Mongols. The integration of these vast territories into the Grand Duchy of Lithuania laid the foundations for the future development of Ukrainian and Belarusian national identities, as much of their early history is intertwined with this expansive state. The battle's influence on the nascent Russian states, particularly Muscovy, was significant. While Muscovy still paid tribute to the Golden Horde, the defeat of the Mongols at Blue Waters provided a vital precedent. It showed that the invincible Golden Horde could indeed be humbled. This contributed to a changing perception of the Mongols, and may have indirectly encouraged Muscovite princes to pursue their own ambitions for unification and eventual liberation. The Battle of Kulikovo in 1380, where Dmitry Donskoy of Moscow decisively defeated a major Golden Horde army, can be seen as a culmination of the trends set in motion by Algirdas's victory at Blue Waters. Both battles demonstrated the growing military strength of the Eastern Slavic and Baltic powers and the diminishing effectiveness of the fragmented Mongol forces. Historians continue to debate the precise extent of Lithuanian direct control over all the territories claimed immediately after Blue Waters through the subsequent decades. The borderlands remained fluid, and local princes often shifted allegiances based on immediate threats and opportunities. However, the fundamental shift in the balance of power was irreversible. The Golden Horde was slowly being pushed back, not just militarily but culturally and politically. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania, later unified with Poland as the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, became a formidable bulwark against Eastern nomadic incursions, shaping the destiny of Eastern Europe for centuries to come. The Battle of Blue Waters, though sometimes overshadowed by more famous engagements, stands as a critical turning point, a powerful testament to the strategic acumen of Algirdas, and a foundational moment in the history of Lithuania, Ukraine, and Belarus. It truly marks a critical moment, where the tide turned against the once unassailable Mongol Empire in Eastern Europe. The echoes of this battle reverberated for generations, fundamentally altering the geopolitical landscape and paving the way for the emergence of new powers in the region. The victory at Blue Waters was not merely a military success, it was a psychological emancipation. For generations, the name Mongol had evoked fear and despair across Eastern Europe. The relentless raids, the crushing defeats, the brutal subjugation, all painted a picture of an unconquerable empire. Algirdas, through his meticulous planning and bold execution, shattered this myth. His victory proved that disciplined European armies, combining diverse military traditions and operating under unified command, could indeed face and defeat the fearsome Mongol cavalry on their own terms. This shift in perception was crucial for the long-term struggle against the remnants of the Golden Horde. It provided confidence and inspiration to other principalities striving for independence. Without this initial breakthrough, the path to full liberation would have been considerably longer and more arduous. The immediate aftermath also saw Algirdas consolidate power through strategic appointments of his sons and relatives to govern the newly annexed territories. This brought a more centralized administration to regions that had previously experienced a more fragmented Mongol control. Prince Volodymyr Olgirdovich, Algirdas's son, ruling Kiev, began minting his own coinage, a clear sign of autonomy and established governance, under Lithuanian suzerainty, replacing the Mongol-era currency or tribute payments. This cultural and economic integration further solidified Lithuanian control and introduced a degree of stability that had been absent for centuries. The Lithuanian policy of preservation of local Ruthenian culture, language, and Orthodox religion, rather than forced assimilation, fostered a sense of loyalty among the populace, which was vital for securing these vast new territories. Further details surrounding the Battle of Blue Waters are drawn from various later chronicles, including the Bykawek Chronicle and several Ruthenian chronicles, which provide slightly differing accounts but confirm the core event. While the precise numbers and tactical details vary, the unanimous conclusion is a decisive Lithuanian victory. This battle represents a successful example of a European army adapting to and overcoming nomadic cavalry tactics, a rare feat in the 13th and 14th centuries. Algirdas's use of terrain, combined arms, heavy cavalry, light cavalry, infantry, archers, and a double envelopment strategy demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of military science. The Battle of Blue Waters thus stands as a crucial historical marker, a testament to the shifting sands of power in medieval Eastern Europe. It represents not just a military triumph, but a turning point in the geopolitical and cultural trajectory of the region, fundamentally altering the course of history for the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the future states of Ukraine and Belarus. It heralded the beginning of the end for the Golden Horde's dominance and ushered in a new era of growing European influence.